You are about to enter the Ghostly Archives. Welcome, everyone. We are about to go live on the Ghostly Archives podcast. I have an amazing guest for you tonight, as usual. But while we're waiting for everyone to stream in, you can help the podcast grow by doing a few clicks and giving a little bit of your time. So remember, while you're waiting for the live stream to start, go over and subscribe to your favorite platform, give the content a like, thumbs up, and make sure to share that content on your social media or share it from the platform you're viewing it on. And also, go to the audio podcast platform of your choice and give us 5 stars, especially on iTunes. That helps the show up in the ratings and it helps people become aware of us. So, hang tight, got about another minute, and we'll be right with you with tonight's special guest. Well, welcome to the Ghostly Archives. Here we are live again Tuesday night, and I've got a wonderful show for you tonight with my guests, Bob and Laura Antone. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Oh, Joe Fox says hello. Hi, Joe. How are you doing? Welcome to the show. We are going to have our guests in a few minutes. I'm going to do a little intro about them. But before I get into that, guys, please help support the show grow. You can do that. I say this every time by subscribing to whatever platform you're watching on. You can thumbs up, like, share, hit the heart button, share the content on your social media. And of course, if you listen to this on the audio platform, go over to that audio platform, especially iTunes and Spotify, and rate us 5 stars. Every time you rate, it helps it show up. It totally shows up in the charts, and that makes people recognize us more so that when our guests come on, we have more people that are engaging. Jenny says hi. Good evening, Jenny. I hope you're having a wonderful night. I know Jenny from X. She's awesome. She's amazing. Now, my guest tonight is storyteller, author, historian, musician, and visual artist Bob Antone. And he's joining us from the Snoqualmie Valley, Washington State. He calls it the real Twin Peaks. Him and his wife Laura, who's with us today, of course, they lead guided tours featuring strange and haunted places throughout the King County and the greater Northwest. In 2019, they co-authored a book called The Odd Man Up, showcasing true crime, I love true crime, and paranormal stories compiled through family and community sources. With a second book currently in the works, Bob joins us to share their latest paranormal encounters, the true crime, unsolved mysteries, hidden places, fun regional history, lesser-known cryptids, folklores, and of course, ghostly encounters with the unknown. I think I got it all right there for you guys. So I'm not going to torture you anymore. I'm going to bring Bob and Laura in. Welcome to the show. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
We're good.
Hello. Good. All
Um,
right. So, this is like really fascinating that you do a lot of these guided tours. But first, maybe both of you kind of give a little history and why you came to the paranormal and how you what attracted you to it and how you got to doing these tours.
Yeah, so I grew up here in North Bend, Washington, and I grew up with a lot of family storytellers. Uh, my uncles, aunts, both grandparents, since I was a little boy in this very house. Yeah, I love tall tales. I also like history. My dad used to talk about logging camps and railroad history. But this is a hotbed around here of Bigfoot sightings. We have paranormal phenomenon. Of course, in 1989, uh, Mark Frost and David Lynch came to the area to film Twin Peaks, the pilot episode, and that went internationally. So this place is known all over the world. Um, so I would say family and community is where I got my inspiration. We write down all of these stories every time we do a tour. My wife and I, we create a script. We create a script and we keep all of those scripts as documents. So, and we got a lot of material. So, how about you, Laura?
um, let's see. My growing up years was a little different. I was born in the Northwest Territories, and my family. Well, I was adopted, but then my family were very adventurous. So we had traveled to Europe, and we were mostly based in Canada, but we'd go to different parts of Africa and went into Wales and Ireland, and then we went all the way down to LA and then up to Woodinville. And then that's how we ended up meeting. And um, through my travels, just I've seen some pretty unusual things. So I've always had an interest in the paranormal since I was small. Since I can remember, 4 years old, I think was the
Mhm.
first thing I just realized that there's something strange and unusual about the world and people. But
Right,
yeah,
and you discover that, like, you're well traveled, so are you discovering this along your way? Every location you go, you're connecting those dots that this happens everywhere.
yeah, there's so my family lived in LA for 4 years. We were in about, I believe, three different houses. Two of them were rentals, and then my parents decided to be able to get a condo. But where the condo was is that there was a parking garage underneath, and it was a second and a third story condo that faced out to a cemetery. So I just remember, um, I think I was 11, 12 years old at the time, and I just remember there were some pretty unusual things that I would see just outside my window. My bedroom window would be facing the cemetery, and my brother's windows would be facing the same cemetery. So it was there's things that would move around, but we also had neighbors on the one side too. So
Mhm.
I mean, you had to kind of distinguish, well, was that the neighbor or is there something strange and weird going on? And you kind of had to be able to kind of keep keep the balance, not get your mind and running away from you.
Right, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, you wanna keep grounded, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. So how do you go from that to starting, like, your own company where you do guided tours? Like, I've always thought maybe I should do that, but I was like, "Oh, I don't have the nerve." Like, that's all I don't know. Is this a talent you developed or you just did it and sink or swim?
We're we're kind of word of mouth, and so sometimes celebrities will get a hold of us. They're visiting the Seattle area, and they've heard of us, and they contact us, and we take them out on a private tour. People that you've heard of, people that are well known.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting, but we don't necessarily advertise. We keep it word of mouth. And we started in 2017. It was October. It was Halloween weekend. We decided to do a walking tour of North Bend, our hometown. We started here. And then from there, we went up to Snoqualmie Pass, and we had a Bigfoot walking tour exploring various sites of historic encounters and cultural history around Sasquatch. Then we went from there to Snoqualmie, and then Falls City, and then Carnation and Duval. We went through the entire Snoqualmie Valley, out to Issaquah, Bellevue, Snohomish, Seattle. We just expanded from there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we've had some interesting requests. People from Paris have been here, like people visiting from Paris, and they wanted us to show them around. And we're going to have some friends or some folks from London that are arriving in February that
Wow.
also heard about us, and they want to see the secret history or the secret sites of the real Twin Peaks. So there you go.
That's fantastic. Now, you guys told me, I'm not going to torture anyone. We'll get right into the stories and then we'll go from there. You guys were telling me about an interesting time travel story, that experience. So I'm going to let you guys take it away because you're the storytellers.
Okay, sounds good. So we used to have a neighbor right next door here, and very unusual guy, very, very strange person. And Laura and I both met him. He rented from my father. My father is no longer with us, so this story is dedicated to my father. And the neighbor was having trouble with his water heater. So he was over there replacing the water heater. And up until then, our neighbor was very quiet. He was awkward. He was always wearing sunglasses. He had really pasty skin. He wore all black, kind of like the Men in Black, But we had a few conversations with him. When we did have conversations with him, it was all over the place. He was, incoherent at times, talking about very strange things. But we were nice to him and all that. So he hadn't been talking for a while. My dad was in the apartment, and suddenly this guy, he looks up and he says, "Hey, Tom, you want to see something?" And my dad was startled because this man barely speaks for, weeks at a time. And he said, "Sure." And so he went into his bedroom, reached under his mattress, and he pulled out this little bundle of socks. And he started unraveling this bundle in front of my dad. And he got to this case, and then he opened this case. And my father said he pulled out this object about the size of a pen. And he goes, "Watch this, Tom." So he pointed the object at the wall, and then he somehow activated this thing. I don't know what he did, but according to my dad, who never made up stories, he was a straight shooter. He he pointed it at the wall, and suddenly this beam of light comes out of this object and starts to burn a hole through the wall. And of course, this is my dad's rental, and he's watching this fire being started and this hole being burned through the wall, and he's quite startled. And then he says, "I can turn this up all the way, and I could burn a hole through someone's skull 10 miles away." And my mom was sitting there, and Laura and I were sitting there. My mom says, "Don't you tell anybody this story." Here we are. I'm telling this story. My dad's passed on. I'm going to tell this story. So she was really worried about it. But here's where it gets really weird. I mean, that's weird enough. Okay, that's weird enough. But the next thing he said,
that's like Chinese spy weird.
Absolutely. And then the next thing he tells him, he says, "Tom, I'm from the future. I traveled here from a future time." And he explained that the technology was from the future. And I mean, it just blows my mind. So, of course, we're artists. I did a painting of this, and then I also wrote a song about it. So we have a song, we have a painting. We take these stories and we either write them down, we either make a painting, or we write a song, we make a sculpture. We document these tales in different ways. But that story, 100% true. And Laura, what do you remember about our neighbor? I didn't use his name yet, but anyway, what do you remember? What do you remember about him?
Well, I remember that I was in our kitchen and I was just, our kitchen faces out to the apartment he used to live in. So, and this was before we had a fence up between. So I was able to be able to see the comings and goings of our neighbors. And, when you're doing the dishes, you don't stare into the sink. I mean, I was looking out the window. I wasn't watching the neighbors or anything, but I just noticed that for about, I think it was 2 weeks, the same person would leave in his car, come back, and he would be like in the middle of the night, be hauling stuff in and out of this apartment. Like it wasn't like trash bags or anything. It was actual boxes of some sort. And I just thought, okay, well, whatever. Neighbors moving things is not an unusual thing. But then I ended up noticing about I don't know, 4 days later, his vehicle had been altered, so the back end of it was raised. So his shocks were actually, I don't know, he had altered it in some way to raise his back end of his car. It was like an SUV. It's like I don't know, a Subaru or something. I don't know what it was, but all of a sudden he would leave at about 10 o'clock, come back about midnight, and I would be making my tea, getting ready to go to bed, and I would see his car drive in with the back end kind of lowered to kind of like a parallel level. And then I'd see him get out of his car and go in. Then the next morning, his back end of his car would be raised again. So there was something heavy enough in the back of his car that he was loading into his apartment. And we could not figure out what it could have been.
Yep.
Because nobody would see him do these things, because they of course would be 1, 2 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, because I there were times when I would see him out there that late. So it was just, he was a very unusual person. Our neighbors also told us not to ever look him in the eye. Like he told the other neighbors, don't look me in the eye, that it was really dangerous to be able to have direct eye contact, and he wore his sunglasses at night, and he was a very unusual person for sure. Like he didn't really talk to me very much, but I mean, when Bob would go over there, his dad obviously had to look after the apartment. So yeah, I just remember going over there also to be able to help out, and the door was open, and he felt really uncomfortable that I was there, so I just kind of stayed outside. But I just remember there was some sort of like large numbers and letters on his screen, and there was some sort of
Coordinates.
yeah, it
Earth
was like
coordinates.
coordinates. He was looking at
Scanning
planets,
and maps and all
and
kinds
yeah,
of stuff.
there's like maps on his table, and I mean, he was interesting. I do have to say that. I mean,
And did the maps, like you're saying this is from the future, so did they look like something you'd never seen before in terms of maps?
I don't think so. They look like regular maps to me, but I mean,
Right.
the
Just
things that I would see like on his computer, it would be, I don't know, some sort of unusual writing I've never seen before. So it's not, it would be
interesting.
rude of me to be able to try to take a picture of what it was, because I don't know what he would have done. I
You'd
mean,
probably be
you
like,
just don't
what's
do
going
that.
on?
I wish you did.
Right.
Man, that would have been
It's,
cool.
So-
you have to have some certain respect for privacy, even if the person is not from this world or from the future.
So what do you think about time? Like, do you have concepts of what time is? Because we seem to think it's this linear pathway that you can only go forward, but obviously we might be wrong.
Be able to go backwards as well. Yeah, it just, I mean, being the what he said, he had mentioned he was from the future. So obviously he's from the future. He's obviously been able to come back to the past.
I always use the example of 9/11 as an example of time travel, talking about time travel. I've done this before, but I'll just say it really quick. So there was a lot of folks that, saw or drew a picture of or painted or had a vision of 9/11 before it happened in New York City. And so the idea is that if something is dramatic enough, it's like a giant rock being thrown in a pond, and some of those ripples ripple back through time, and people can perceive those ripples. So 9/11 was a huge cultural event. People sensed it before it happened. That's an
Right.
explanation of how time kind of works. Anyway, there's also the side ripples in the present too. Someone pointed that out. So when you use that analogy of rippling back in time, you also have time rippling out sideways. So in the
Yeah, and
present, I don't know.
there's
Yeah.
also this concept that there is no time, that everything is or is happening all at once. Wrap your head around that one.
Yeah.
It's almost like,
Mhm.
well, I always like look at it like there's all these different levels that you can see things, and we're in like 3-4 dimension. So somebody from some way above dimension can see everything that's happening, almost like it's happening all at once. That's how I think of it. I don't even know if that's accurate because I'm not a physicist. But when I heard that, like, there's no time, it's all happened already. Everything's always happened all at once. That's why you get these insights. I'm like, oh. But of course, we get time. The concept of our time is how we go around the planets and revolve around the sun and all those cycles. So obviously, it's going to be different somewhere else. That's really cool. So, what was like? Did you know any significance of this guy? Like why he was there? Did you see any like reason? Like, did he give you a reason why he was a time traveler? Or
Nope.
No,
no?
no, and the lady that actually lived next door to him swears up and down that she heard very unusual noises coming from his apartment. Also,
Mhm.
we're very kind to her too. She was she was almost kind of a recluse. So she didn't really
Interesting.
go out very much, so we would come and visit her. So
She claimed that she could hear animals being tortured in the bathroom. I know it's very disturbing, but the same person who's the time traveler was torturing animals. So I know it's like Laura's watching these crates or these boxes being taken into the apartment. Next thing you know, the neighbor's hearing, squealing noises or, screaming noises from animals. I mean, it's just awful. I don't
It's
know what that's all
bizarre.
about. No, I
That
know, it's
that
bizarre.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is bizarre. So did this person just disappear, or
Yep.
and he was gone?
No idea where he went. No idea.
we didn't even see any moving boxes.
He was just gone.
We didn't see any U-Haul, nothing. So he was there and then he wasn't.
And then the apartment smelled of bleach. Like it was just all bleach in there. I was like, oh man, that is
From
disturbing.
from floor to
This
ceiling,
is
he had
sounds like
cleaned
it's getting into
everything.
true crime.
Could have been the blood from the animals that he was torturing. I don't know. We don't know.
That's crazy.
You know, hopefully it wasn't
That is
human.
bizarre.
Doing
Oh,
doing some
someone
sort of
has a question
experiment.
for you,
Oh,
and
sure.
Eric has said, did his rental application have any references, credit checks, or other info? I don't know how you would know that.
Oh, so about his dad.
Yeah.
He was a very kind person where he would not he would waive the credit check
Sometimes.
sometimes. He would allow people even if, they he was just really nice. I
He,
mean, he
Small
always wanted
community.
to he
yeah.
just wanted
Yeah.
he wanted to be able to give back to the community and to be able to help somebody up, if they were down.
Yeah. He was a good man.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Carol, oh God, did I use a real name? Dang it. Sorry. Whoops. Anyway.
This is
It's
only
okay.
personal.
Okay. All right. Okay. Do you know the movie Ghost with
I
Patrick
do.
Swayze and Demi Moore?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
All right. Well, you're going to love this really quick. This is 3 minutes, and then I'm excited to see how you respond to this. So our neighbor, the one that heard the squealing animals, this is a connection to her. So one day Laura was looking out the same window and saw in our front yard, what did you see? A grotesque face or someone standing there?
Yeah, it was just a very old face. Just hair was all mussy, and he had kind of like a long coat on, and I was just wondering what this person was doing in our yard. So I went to go and find you to be able to tell you, hey, there's some weird guy in our yard. So then you came out and you looked out the same window, and then he was gone.
So then we were talking to our neighbor who came over, and Laura had said, "Oh, this is what I saw," and she said, "Oh, that's just my husband."
Well, because what I ended up telling her was, did you ever see a strange person kind of lurking around the house or walking through the property? And then well, what does he look like? So I described it, and then she just said,
she started to describe her husband, who's now deceased, and she says, "Have you ever seen the movie Ghost?" And we said, "Yeah, we've seen Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Yeah, of course." And she said, "You know the scene on the subway where the ghost is teaching Patrick Swayze how to use his powers?" Or he says, "Get off my train." That guy. So she goes, "That is my ex-husband. I was married to him. He left me and moved to Europe. He moved to, like, I think Italy, and then he died of a heart attack in Italy." And I said, "Well, wait a second here. Are you telling me the ghost from Ghost,
or the actor,
is a ghost in our front yard? The ghost
from
Ghost
is a ghost in your front yard."
Absolutely true. That lady, we looked her up. She really was married to Vincent Schiavelli.
Yep.
Vincent, I can't remember. He's got, yeah, you know the actor I'm talking about?
I'm gonna have to go watch that. It's been a long time since I've seen Ghosts, but that sounds kind of convoluted. That sounds like some kind of strange connection, and
Vincent,
I'm sure you guys are used to these strange connections.
Can you see that guy's face?
Oh my God, I know exactly who that is. He is a character actor. He's in so many movies. I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, one
Wow. So he's a ghost.
Yeah.
The ghost on Ghost is a ghost in her.
Right here.
Right there.
Maybe.
Was.
Yeah. His ex-wife used to live next door. She was from LA. She moved up here. Yep. And we verified all. That's absolutely true. We saw her on the red carpet. We verified her name, everything, her identity. So
he's such a character. I think that would be spooky to see him as a ghost. Because you can't miss the guy. He's got such distinguished features.
Yeah.
He's very unique. Wow, that's amazing. That is bizarre. A little Hollywood trivia for everybody who didn't know that. So, okay, so the time traveler, one of the you had this video up and it was sort of panning into the woods, and I've had a lot of people come on and talk to me, and I've talked to a lot of friends, and I used to live on Vancouver Island, so I was surrounded by forest, and I always got the sense that there was like something in some of the places I would go and hike. I always had this sense that there was something watching me, and there were certain areas where I had to leave, and I would think I was nuts. I thought I'm going crazy. I'm just overreacting. And then I had other people report that, oh yeah, there's stuff in the side of the woods where we hike. We don't go there. We go on the other side. Or they would tell me my family owned that land and they sold it off, and we would never go over there because there's something there and it's not a wild animal and there's all this stuff. And do you guys do a lot of stuff about mountains and nature and ghosts in nature? Because I find that so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. So that video that you are referring to, that's our backyard, and I just panned to the top of Mount Si, and at the very end, it's called Little Si, that little hump at the end. But that whole area,
share it for everybody.
Absolutely, share it with everyone. Yep. But we have so many reports of lights over the mountain. This is for thousands of years, but in the last 150 years or so, there have been folks that have moved to the area, including some
Sorry, I'm just giving them a little preview of it.
Yeah, sure. It's all
This
good.
is
Do it.
the area that we're talking about. It's beautiful and it's fantastic. A little clip of
Yeah,
the mountainous. For those who are listening on audio, go check it out on YouTube. Okay, so and just the sound, the forlorn sound of that just chills me. So I'll let you continue.
Oh yeah, that was great. I'm glad that you shared that. That was really cool looking. So many years, people have seen lights over the mountain, including one of the old mayors of town. And in the 1960s, there was a famous like UFO sighting over Mount Si, and apparently, you can look this up. The description is a large orange blob, kind of a organic blob, glowing fluorescent thing that was seen over Mount Si. But people see lights all the time. There are folks that live on Snoqualmie Ridge, and they recently, I mean, in the last 6 months, will take video and photographs of lights that they see from their deck, and people take pictures all the time, and they throw them up on Heritage Acres and some of the local social media sites. So there are pictures out there, not our pictures, but these are people that don't even know each other who are seeing the same thing and posting pictures of mysterious lights, behaving in strange ways. Kind of similar to what people say in, Area 51. They see lights like that in Area 51 and in Las Vegas. And we have that here in our backyard. The other thing we have are a lot of Bigfoot sightings. This last summer, there were 2 individuals that went missing on the same day. This leads into that area and that mountain. But we kind of we volunteered and helped search for both individuals. We did just a volunteer search party. This was the headquarters here, our house. We had people, actually, we had FBI here because some of the land was federal land. So we had agents from FBI. We had trackers. I'm not an expert tracker. She's not an expert tracker, but we had expert trackers that came to volunteer to look for these 2 individuals that went missing on the same day in summer of 2023. And so there was so much fear in the community. No one knew what happened. A lot of people thought maybe they were abducted. There was some foul play. The other thing was, some of the supernatural beliefs of this area. There was just a very unease. There was just a lot of unease at that time. So it ended up that both of the people were found deceased. One of them, and I want to be careful about the identity, but one of the individuals fell 500 feet off of that one mountain in that clip. If you watch that entire clip and you see the very end where that little mound is, one of the individuals fell 500 feet. And there was this great mystery of how did he get to the top, because he had been communicating with his family on a cell phone, and his cell phone ping was found in a certain location. There was a lot of mystery around it. The other thing that was so strange is that he fell 500 feet and his cell phone was totally undamaged. Like, I don't know if he was holding his cell phone or what, but if you fall 500 feet with your cell phone, you'd think that your cell phone would be smashed into smithereens. It was, we held it. It was like, whoa, very strange. There's a lot of things about his death that are very mysterious. And I'm going to tell you, without giving away the identity of the family, I want to respect them, but without giving away their identity, they have not received an autopsy report yet. And they should be getting one, and they haven't gotten one. And there's a lot of unanswered questions. I mean, we could go on and on about how many mysteries surrounding this one particular death and the missing person, and just so strange, so weird. So,
well, missing 411 is a big topic. A lot of people love it. It just kind of reminds me of like people would show up in different locations and they go missing. And when they would go to find them, they would literally find their boots and their clothes upright and things that just didn't make any sense. Like, why would they take their clothes off, put it situated, like sitting like it was sitting, and then start, I don't know, maybe they went crazy. I don't know. But there's bizarre things about a lot of people who go missing in these remote locations.
Yeah, there is some similarities to that, missing 411, and just some of the things just didn't make any sense. like where the last cell phone ping was, and then where this person was found is just totally strange. And just yeah, a lot of people who are really adept in the field of human tracking were very confused and just scratching their head. Just wow, what the heck's going on here? This is so bizarre. So anyway,
Yeah, it is bizarre. But do you have any, like, I know there's a lot of like native myths about Sasquatch and Bigfoot, because I would hear that a lot on Vancouver Island, and I would talk to locals or listen to native lore. Is there any other like lore or myth about what is in the woods that you share on your tours, like beside like Sasquatch or any kind of earth spirits?
We try really hard to be able to be again very respectful of the local tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So we do just, they have their stories, their religious beliefs, they which they still follow this day. So we try to be able to make sure that we separate ourselves and not really go into that whole in-depth stories
Right.
from that belong to them mainly. So I
Perfect. Yeah.
mean, I know that I'm native, but
You're not of
I'm
that
not a
tribe.
part of their tribe at all.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm comfortable talking about my own.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
But I mean,
If
let's talk
feel
about that.
free if
I,
you'd like to. Feel free if you'd like to. Absolutely. If that's
um,
okay with you.
well, I I'm from the Northwest Territories. I was born there, so in a small town called Fort Liard. It's a little past the very top of the British Columbia border. Um, and there are folklore, but there's also a belief of people going into the forest, but not necessarily coming out, and
And losing their heads.
and being decapitated, which is a little disturbing. But we
Definitely.
again, it's one of those stories that has been, within my tribe for a long time. So we don't, because there's also a strong belief in Sasquatch, which are about 4 feet tall. They're hairy from head to toe. They're kind of like a mini Sasquatch, and they're known as the Nukluk. They're, I mean, they would not be like the kind of the ones that are doing the decapitating.
Yeah, so there's two names in her tribe. There's the Nukluk,
Hmm.
which are these small 5 foot tall Neanderthal looking things. And Ivor T. Sanderson, who was a cryptozoologist, he went to Fort Liard. He went to the Headless Valley, right where she's from. And there was a famous sighting, several sightings of the Nukluk in the 1960s. That's where we get the Nukluk. So if you look up Ivor T. Sanderson, you look up Nukluk, 1960s, Fort Liard, that's her hometown. The ones that do the decapitating are the Nahani, right?
Yeah.
And what did your mom talk about with the Nahani? Because I didn't catch all that conversation, but that was
Oh
interesting.
my gosh, that was a long time ago. Um, what she was telling me was that most of the time when you went in and you were not allowed to be able to be on a certain property or a certain trap line, you were seen and then not seen. And again, you'd find bodies with no heads or just the heads, no bodies. I mean, how would you how would you explain that? It was literally severed. It didn't look like an animal that had done it. You know how
It was
Clean.
clean,
it
right?
was clean,
Clean.
Clean cut.
clean cut.
Yeah,
So with what it, I
a
mean,
really sharp knife.
yeah,
Wow. Like,
nobody can really explain. We just know it as certain places where you're not allowed to go,
And you get killed if you're there.
and
Yep.
yeah, you disappear. You just, you don't ever come back. So I don't know. I kind of sorry about the pun. I chop it up as it's possible that, early in our history, I honestly think that there were explorers that would go up there, and it could have been a part of my tribe that were trying to persuade in a strong sense to stay away, and they're trying to be able to tell these explorers to, yeah, you guys are not allowed to be here. So it's very, it would make more sense. But now that you're kind of further on, into technology, you would just kind of assume that, people would know that murder is illegal, that you can
Yeah.
actually be imprisoned for it, and that you would be prosecuted. So these disappearing people, um,
Not so much.
that are getting maimed, you would think that, they wouldn't happen anymore, but I guess they still do. That's what that's what my mom was telling me. So
So look up the Headless Valley, the
The
Valley, or
headless
the Headless Valley. Yep.
the headless valley, the Nahani. Oh,
Yeah,
my
Nahanni
phone is doing
Valley.
a freak out. I've just got an emergency snowfall warning alert. Oh, I guess I'm gonna be
Woo.
housebound.
Oh wow.
Oh boy. Well, I used to live in your area of the neck of wood for a very long time, for like 30 years, originally from the East Coast, and now I live by the Rockies in Utah. And and I would, if you'd asked me if I'd be here about 5 years ago, I would have never said yes. I'll be living in America in Utah. I would have never guessed it. So that's it's really common though when you're talking about wooded areas. It's a common theme in a lot of cultures to warn people to stay away from the woods. Like I always just assumed it was wild animals. You don't want to get eaten by a cougar or bear, so they make up a myth or tell stories to warn children. But like I said, I've gone into the forest, and there's a highway, that goes down, and there's one side of the hike, and then there's another that goes down to the ocean. Then there would be another side of it that goes into a creek area that's on the other side. And the side that went into the creek area, I couldn't shake this horrible feeling that someone was watching and following me, even though there was no one there. And my first instinct, of course, was, guys, they're like a cougar or what? So I would always leave. But when I would go to the other side, I just didn't have that feeling at all. And do you have any kind of belief in like earth spirits or fairies or something like that you tell? Because I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's the wee folk. And I know in like Scottish and Ireland, they have this wee folk, like little tiny things that will abduct you or take children and take them away and switch them out and stuff like that. Is there any belief like that that's in the woods in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest?
Yeah. Well, I would say yes, we have a belief. And I think part of the reason that we believe is that one night we woke up and there was some things going on in our bedroom that was pretty remarkable. So this was March 20th, 2022. My dad had just passed away on March 10th. It was 10 days later. But March 20th happened to be the death anniversary of my grandfather, who died in this house right here. So on March 20th, and it was 12:03 a.m., Laura and I both woke up, and there were these strange lights coming in our window, and they were crossing the foot of our bed, and it was almost like the northern lights. It was like a curtain of red, but then there were these really long laser looking lights. The strange thing that happened, and we both saw this, we were wide awake. This is one of the scariest things I've seen in my life. But on the other side of this membrane that was kind of pulsating, we could see these little people, maybe 3 and 4 foot tall, and they were kind of just floating in our room, sort of halfway here, halfway not here. But then they turned around and I could see like teeth, and I could see the eyes shining, and they were kind of dark and furry. I didn't know if it was fur, but they were just dark. But I could see the teeth, I could see the eyes, and I could make out that they were little people, 3 foot tall, coming in our bedroom, wide awake. We both saw it. I screamed like a little girl. I did. I admit it. I almost peed my pants. I think a lot of people would. It was scary. And then all that light went into the wall, into a ball of light, and then just vanished. It was the strangest thing. We've told this story before. Some people say, "Oh, was that an alien, encounter?" It's somewhere between a fairy encounter and an alien encounter, but that's really
a
what
lot of
happened.
people think they're the same thing.
That's right. Yeah. So that would be
I'm
an
not.
answer.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that.
You're not saying that. Okay.
I'm not saying they are. I don't know. I've never had. I've had like paranormal. I lived in a haunted house. I've never actually had an experience with a UFO abduction. I've had a sleep paralysis or a
Mhm.
fairy. But maybe I'm just not going to the. I mean, I'm not out in the woods enough. I'm secluded in a house. Maybe I need to get out more.
Maybe you need to get out
But
more. Yeah. But it really happened. So yeah,
oh
absolutely.
no, I totally believe you because I also think that there are people who are better at picking up certain things. Like I believe that our modern technology is just hindering what we perceive. It's like messing the way that our intuition works.
Hmm.
And because we were having this discussion the other day on my show where I think it was with Dean Bertram. He was talking about the Shaver mysteries and how he said that there was all these different this lost civilization that was communicating him and they thought he had schizophrenia. And I pointed out that schizophrenia didn't show up until the Industrial Revolution. And I think a lot of this technology and the shifts we do in humanity are they're just affecting us. And I
Hmm.
think there's people who just can perceive things better or see things better or, you know, and we're so engaged with everything and technology that sometimes I think it puts your mind at a certain level and you just miss everything that other people and children, they're always in theta brainwave and we're never there. We're always somewhere else. And they pick up on so much that we just are like, what? We've forgotten. It's amazing, that yeah, and I don't know, I think if we were around 500 years ago, we'd probably be having way more interesting experiences because I'm finding like paranormal stories are actually changing or they're reducing or they're becoming something different than what they were, say, 300 years ago, even in, like Western culture. You can add
So
that if you want, or I could be crazy.
we caught a show where you were talking about serial killers and paranormal, and I wanted
Hmm.
to just throw this in really quick. But one night we watched a documentary about Ted Bundy. We were like, "Oh, cool! Let's watch this documentary about Ted Bundy," because Ted Bundy was active around this area. Anyway, we're like,
In my
"Oh, I
area.
didn't know Ted Bundy had a brother." Oh yeah, in your area too.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, Utah. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know that we were like, "Oh, we didn't know Ted Bundy had a brother." And then I was like, "Let me see if he's on Facebook." And I was like, "Oh, weird. Oh, I found Ted Bundy's brother on Facebook." And so what did I do? I'm kind of morbid this way, but I sent him a friend request on Facebook, Ted
Hmm.
Bundy's brother. So anyway, that evening, I remember Laura and I distinctly remember waking up in the middle of the night and there was a sinister presence that just sucked all the life out of the room that just kind of entered our house. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like we woke up and just, that feeling of terror. A lot of people talk about when something enters their home, some kind of sinister spirit. And it just felt so distinct. We both woke up at the same time. And I thought, well, maybe Ted Bundy is just checking us out because we're sending his brother a friend request. And maybe he came over to kind of check us out and, look at us or something. But we felt like someone was watching us at the foot of the bed and that kind of thing. So, but I've mentioned before, a lot of people record paranormal phenomenon everywhere that Ted lived and did his thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a weird evening, and so I don't think his brother ever accepted my friend request, but maybe his older brother came and was like, "Hey, what do you want with my little brother?" I don't know. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe not. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, that I think that's in a very it's a super dark energy and there's a house. I'm still working on the article I went and filmed in Bountiful, Utah. Now, I don't know that Ted was ever there. I know he rented a place in Salt Lake City when he was here doing his worst.
Hmm.
But there was he had kidnapped a girl in Bountiful, Deborah Jean Kent, and they're saying he took her to this house and it's the Bundy ritual house and he did all this. satanic ritual stuff. And I think they got that because when he was on death row, he was saying that some entity was taking him over. And they say that a lot, so they don't have to claim ownership for what they've done. But I went and filmed the house, and it's kind of dilapidated and fallen apart, and you can't get in. And it was on Ghost Adventures. And even if Ted Bundy hadn't been to that house, like I always say, he might as well, because I believe sometimes Ted was evil, but because we keep talking about it, we actually kind of, I don't know, it's like a mind virus. It kind of spreads, and it will, and then there's people who go in that house, whether Ted has not been there or not, and they do total satanic rituals and creepy stuff
Oh,
and
wow.
negative stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah. You can't get in there. I wouldn't want to. I think I'd be surprised if it stood for any longer. It looks like it's in bad condition. I'd be scared
We have
that it.
That's really freaky. I'd love to know more about that. We have a friend who's a journalist, and she graduated from the University of Washington. She
Mhm.
happens to be a journalist on one of the main news networks. And she said that she was part of the sorority where, Ted Bundy had victimized a few college girls, but she
Mhm.
belonged to that sorority where that victim, where that happened, where that took place. And she said that ever since then, she remembers that the talk around campus was that sorority was cursed. And she said, like, they would be the last to be invited to certain events, and there was this taboo about their sorority, and like, don't invite them. They're from that one sorority, that kind of thing. I thought that was very, very
Wow.
strange. But she's a very famous journalist, and she's now an attorney, and she was the captain of the Raiders football cheerleading team, for a little bit, the Raiders, and very interesting. But she shared that with us, and I thought that was pretty cool. So,
Wow. I've got a question.
yep.
We'll say JTW would like to know if any of you have an experience with violent, disruptive, poltergeist-like activity.
Violent meaning like scratching and
Probably, yeah, like scratching, throwing things, lots of chaos.
I don't know about violent, but we've had noisy ghosts. We've experienced noisy ghosts.
We
Most active location that you've been at? What would that be?
For me, this is on a reservation, so this is near Snoqualmie, the town of Snoqualmie. There was a trailer that had been built on another trailer, and I was standing there on this little reservation with the family, and won't say any names, but upstairs there was all this commotion in the room, and I remember I could see objects flying around. It just sounded like a wild animal up there. And then one of the girls that was there screamed and said, I saw a figure, but she said she saw the figure and it had glowing yellow eyes. But I saw and heard the commotion up there, but there was nobody up there. There was nothing up there. And it turned out the grandfather next door said that that spirit, because it had yellow eyes, had died of smallpox. The yellow eyes culturally means that that spirit died of smallpox years and years ago, when Europeans came in, and basically what it was 1770 through 1830, there was smallpox that wiped out the indigenous population here in this area. And so one of those deaths, this person, that's why they had yellow eyes, and that was the one I saw. Well, witnessed and heard the noise and saw objects, but I sort of saw a figure. I didn't see the yellow eyes, but I saw a little figure, and I saw things moving around and thrashing around. So there's my little story. What about you, Laura?
Well, the only thing I can really recall around here is doors would open and close. Why it always happens when somebody's alone. That's probably
Cliche.
the one cliche question everybody has out there. But I remember that it wasn't just me either. Our daughter used to live here with us when she was in her early 20s, and she said that she had heard the door open and close, boots walking through the kitchen, walking towards the back where the bedrooms were, the door to the bathroom would close. She would get up I had the same experience. I never told her about it. She was telling me. I never said anything to anybody. I believe I told Bob about it, but he had not mentioned anything to our daughter. But she would literally hear things moving around, and she also had said she saw somebody that looked like me
A doppelganger.
walking through the kitchen. I've seen Bob literally walk up the driveway and thinking that he would come through the back door, and would go to the shop. I'd be looking, and the way the windows are placed, it's a little hard to be able to miss somebody when they're going back down the driveway. And technically he was supposed to actually be about an hour and a half away. He was with his father helping him out. But literally I saw him come back and he was wearing different clothes, and I was thinking they couldn't have been gone, more than 20 minutes. And again, my daughter has witnessed the same thing, where she would see somebody walk through the kitchen, and I was not even home. So what these things are, I think that I see people walking back and forth in the shop, because when you go out our back door, you can actually see a window that is clearly, you can see into the shop, and you can see shadows going back and forth. Again, I've been here on my own, where yes, like I was saying, I could hear clearly there was somebody walking through our kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was our son, because he's a logger, so like he climbs trees and does all that. So he's got big old boots. But he wasn't even in town either. So what these certain things are, I don't know. There was this one time a long time ago, there was something that was sitting on the kitchen counter, and it flew across the room. You remember that?
Yep.
And it almost actually hit him. And I'm trying to remember what we were talking about at the time, but I think that was like the only time that I witnessed anything, because I think we both kind of said, okay, well, that's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
Because whatever that was, we were kind of telling it, get out.
Yeah.
You're just not welcome here. You're not, if you're a guest at somebody's house, you don't go start picking things up and throwing things around. So we just, we're just,
Yeah. Well,
we kind
I
of,
remember.
we just kind of put our foot down when it comes to anything that is
Sinister.
sinister
Mhm.
or negative, or
Mhm.
we tend to come together and just kind of chase it out,
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Right. Now, do you guys, because you do tours and you deal with this stuff a lot of people have some, they have some fears about it. Do you guys have rituals, or do you guys do any kind of thing that protects you, or do you just have like solid boundaries from having anything attached to you while you're dealing with a lot of these folklores or going to these locations?
Usually they
Or
bother us, but they don't really bother the people that we're with. Usually we kind of take if anybody takes the spirits home, it's usually us, and then we deal with it. But yeah, we haven't really heard of anybody complaining. So I don't know. It works out. So I don't know how it works out, but it does. So there you go.
I think
that's good.
I don't know.
Well,
I think it has something to do with our relationship with each other too.
Yeah.
right. Well, I
Yeah.
know I used to run a podcast called The Secret Door a while ago, and I had a guest on who he was talking about a paranormal house. Now, I would suspect that he was either making it happen or like psychologically, like it was connected to him because it was really elaborate, and there was just a vibe I got from him. And while I was interviewing him, it was the most strangest thing. It felt like someone was all of a sudden walking up and standing behind me, like really aggressive. Like it gave me like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy. And I kind of was like, oh, you're just just being overreactive, Melissa. And I shushed it off, and eventually it went away. But it was the only time where I've been interviewing someone from way far away, remote, different countries, where I had this weird feeling that whatever was around him was showing up and going, hey, and I was like, oh no, you don't, not in my house.
Yeah,
I was
it'd
like,
be the
whatever. I don't know if it was him or what. I have a feeling it was connected to him, though. That was my sense, but
yeah,
it's weird.
absolutely. We actually had somebody recently come over to our house. So Bob does teach music, and so we have a number of people in and out of our house all the time. But he
Yeah.
had invited another musician over to be able to play music with him. And as soon as she entered our house, she said that she was having trouble breathing. She like somebody was like standing on her chest, and she just said, "Did you guys light any incense?" And we're like, "No, we don't do that." She was wondering if it was some sort of cleanser or cleaner, and she goes, "Well, I can't smell anything." And she just, she said that I can't breathe, and she didn't play any music, did she? I don't remember if she
No,
had.
but
She didn't.
I couldn't look her in the eye because I saw two things that were attached to her, and I remember they were not good. They were really, really bad things. And I could barely look her in the eye for very long, and I had to look away.
And
And so it was like whatever's in this house is protective, I guess you could
and
say.
I yeah, and
Mhm.
I
It's not the other way around. It was protecting us, and then she had to go finish the conversation out in
Oh.
the
yeah,
driveway. So
I didn't know her,
mhm.
but I didn't even hear her drive up, and then all of a sudden I just got this really a knot in my stomach. I felt
Mhm.
really kind of nauseous all of a sudden, and then I just walked through the kitchen and again looked out the same window. She was getting out of the car. I was like, oh, okay. I got it. Okay. So as soon as she came in, she said she couldn't breathe. She goes, I don't know what it is.
It was my grandma. She's probably pulling her by the hair and getting her outside, dragged her by the hair.
Yeah. So Bob ended up following her out just to be polite and to be able, because we were you know so they finished their conversation out in the driveway,
Yeah.
and she just seemed like she really just needed to get away from the property. For some reason she was affected by it, and both of us felt like there was either something in her or around her.
Yeah, not necessarily her herself. It
And
was just something attached to her. I don't know. I
one
don't
or
know what it
one
was.
or
Right.
two things, or one or two
Yeah,
people that were just bad
she
news.
may be. It may not be her as a person. It just might be something that's following her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and I mean,
but she seems like a nice person. Yeah.
well, some people have things from their past too, in their childhood. Like they're out in the front, they're like really happy, but they've got some trauma, or they've got something that they forgot about a long time ago, and it forms its own energy and it follows you everywhere. I had that. I've had to cut like do cord cutting and get things off of me because I was really negative when I was younger, and I couldn't figure out why. It was like trauma stuff, weird stuff. I think
Um,
I don't know how it actually happens, but I think we can also create our own things by our thoughts that we keep repeating. We can actually create a vibe that follows us, or something that's not us can be attached. But I've had like I said, when I did that interview, whatever that was definitely not me. Because I could
wow.
feel the contrast in my house. Like I was literally like, whoa, what the? I was looking around, and we weren't on camera. We were just doing audio at this point. I didn't have a camera view, so I can't actually show you that footage, but I know all the hairs on the back of my neck stood up on end, so it wasn't something that was usually in my house. And Jen Doral says talpas. Yeah, we can create talpas. She's right. Debbie, are you familiar with that term?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're just over a little bit over the hour, so we'll start tidying it up. I wanted to ask you if you have had any strange experiences, like, or you have your guests encountered strange experiences when you're touring and giving them guided tours. Have you had things happen live
Yep.
that reconfirmed it to your guests?
Mhm.
Yep. So one of the main ones, real quick, we'll say is during the Bigfoot walking tour, there's about 35 guests. We were at a certain location and we were talking about different forms of protocol and how, these beings, this is their home. So you kind of ask permission to come into their area.
Mhm.
And so wow, wind is just really picking up. Hopefully a tree doesn't hit our house. Anyway, so at that moment, behind my back, there were 3 big footsteps, and this was January, so you could see through the brush. It's not like July or June where everything is green and grown over in the Northwest here. This was like this time of year, everything is sticks. And so it was really strange because we could hear this really large, heavy 500-pound thing behind my back, tromping around, breaking sticks, taking about 3 big footsteps, but couldn't see anything, totally nothing there, like invisible. But you could hear the sound of, and see twigs kind of moving and breaking, kind of like an invisible Bigfoot, you could say. I don't know what it was, but we were talking about Bigfoot. We were talking about Sasquatch, and we were actually, referring to some of the older names. I think I said some of the older names aloud in the language. We've talked about this before. So there was a big group, 35 people and they all went, ooh, they were like, whoa, everybody, noticed. And then I made a joke and I said, that's not my friend in a monkey suit back there, a gorilla suit. I swear it's not my friend. I didn't set anybody up for this. And everybody laughed and thought it was funny. But yeah, literally, we did not plan it. But yeah, but something big and invisible came up behind me during that tour.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've got
there
a
you go.
question here for you. I asked this question of everyone. This is from Joe, mainly because I believe you can, although I've tried. And the question is, we'll put the right screen up, Melissa. Can a person manifest his own encounter, be it alien or paranormal? That would
I,
tie into a tulpa.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah. So now I want to finish off with, I know you guys had a lot of stories and things you had planned. Is there anything you want to tie it up with, a story or thing that you had wanted to share with anyone?
I'm good, but what about you, Laura?
Okay.
We're good. We had a good time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So okay. So you don't have any other topic you want to kind of bring up before we sign out. You're good. Just making sure.
I mean, the only thing I could really say, maybe to wrap it up, is, I'm a music teacher mainly. That's what I mainly do. So our tours on the side and the books that we're writing, it's for archiving. That's why we like your show. You're archiving story and folklore, and I got excited because, right now, everything, especially my father who passed away in 2022, anything about my father, my family, any stories like that, we love to archive them. It's just out of love and, the labor of love. It's not really anything we're making money at. And the tours are a form of preservation as well, because, we write down the scripts, and those scripts are, saved, and that history is saved, or that folklore is saved. So we were really happy to come on your show. That's what we're all about. We don't make a bunch of money off of tours. I make a living as a musician, as an artist, and that kind of thing. So it's a labor of love, and we're going to continue doing it. We admire what you're doing. This video, it could be seen in 100 years by our descendants, which is awesome. So 100 years from now, maybe our great grandkids will see this video, and it'll make their day. It'll be like, oh my gosh, that's my great grandparent.
I feel like, I do write some blogs. It's I don't always get to it, but I feel like podcasts are a form of orality, like sitting around the campfire and talking about it. Although we are recording it permanently, so it's not exactly the same, but it kind of is. So I like that idea. Now, where can people find you online before we shuffle off? Like, where can they locate your information if they want to come on a tour in the Midwest? Is it just word of mouth, or do you actually have like a Facebook page, or?
We do have a Facebook page. It's called Hidden Northwest Tours. Hidden Northwest Tours. But you could just email us. I think the email links are there on your page, but bobantone@hotmail.com. That's an easy one. bobantone@hotmail.com and Laura Williams 33@live.com. Just send us an email. As far as the music goes, you can go on YouTube. I've got a channel with my name, Bob Antone, and there's a lot of like story songs, like the story of the time traveler. I write a lot of songs and record them, and I play various instruments. So a lot of the paranormal tales are actually, they're musical versions on YouTube, Bob Antone. The other thing is we have a paranormal string band called Tinkham Road, a paranormal string band. So, and you can look up Tinkham Road on Spotify and Apple Music, and we have a big group of musicians. So very active performing in the music scene here in the Seattle area. So there you go.
Well, that's excellent. And everybody, the emails and everything, I believe, are in the show notes or the description on YouTube. So you can find it there. I believe I put it all in the description if you guys want to contact Bob and Laura. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys come again and share more stories in the future.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
I'm just going to pop you in the green room here and finish up. I'll be right there. All right.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming live. It was great. Thank you guys in the chat for asking your few questions. So if you guys are looking for something in the Pacific Northwest, contact Bob, contact Laura, and you will, I don't think you'll be disappointed. And you can check out that video. I believe it's on their Facebook that I showed. So next week, do not miss next week, Tuesday, January the 16th, Gary Parsons from the United Kingdom is coming on. It's at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, so that's 5 p.m. Eastern, a little bit early because Gary is coming to us from England. We are going to be talking about Hammer Horror and the history of Hammer Horror Productions. Gary's father worked for Hammer Horror Studios, and Gary is a lecturer on a lot of these sort of pulp culture, darker those topics. So Gary actually knew the greats like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And so you get a chance to listen to Gary tell you all about Hammer Horror. So next Tuesday, the 16th at 3 p.m. On the 23rd, I have Jen Dorrell coming back, 8 p.m., I believe, Eastern Time. And then on the 31st, I have Tobe Johnson coming on at 7 p.m. Eastern. He's going to be talking about Bigfoot. I've booked Walter Bosley, the Walter Bosley, starting in February on the 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern. So he's coming on to talk about Tartaria. And I've got a whole bunch of other people coming in February that I will announce as time comes. You guys, thank you so much. I'm going to head out, and I appreciate you for showing up at the Ghostly Archives. Stay spooky, and we will see you next